In this video, we're going to see how to apply the double exposure effect in Photoshop Elements. We'll see how to go from this to this, or go to this. Hi, this is Rick from EssentialPhotoshopElements.com. Let's go over to Elements and get started. This is a photo that I downloaded from Unsplash.com. It's by Marco W., and you can find a link to it below this video. This double exposure technique is in the guided edit mode beginning in Photoshop Elements 2018. If you have an older version of Elements, you won't be able to use this technique, but I wanted to show you some of the new features that were added to the 2018 version. You can see at the top of the window, I'm currently in expert mode, so I'm going to switch to guided mode by clicking on Guided. Guided mode consists of several effects or techniques to choose from, and then, as the name suggests, it guides you through the steps to achieve the results. Notice near the top of the window there are 6 tabs to choose from. Right now we're in the Basics tab, and there are several options to choose from. The double exposure technique that we want is under the Fun Edits tab, so let's click on that. Now we can see a new bunch of options. The double exposure technique is located in the upper left of the window. Each technique shows a thumbnail of a photo split down the middle. On the left you see the original photo, and on the right you see how the photo looks after applying the guided edit. To choose one of the guided edits, you click once on it. The image you have open will appear in a new window. So I'll click on double exposure. And in guided edit mode you have some view options located near the upper left of the window. Right now the view is set to after only. When you click on the view box, a list of view options pops up. For now I'm going to leave it on after only. The guided steps to achieve the effect are along the right side of the window. Above the steps is a thumbnail of a photo that has had the effect applied to it. You can place your cursor over that thumbnail to see the original version of the photo. And then when you take your cursor off of it, it shows the after version again. Each step is numbered and describes what to do. It also gives you access to any tools you might need to perform the step. In this case, step 1 says, use the crop tool to adjust your photo so the primary subject is in the center. Then you see the crop tool, which you can access by clicking on it. Keep in mind that you can skip over steps if they don't apply, or if you just prefer not to include a particular step. For my example, I'm going to crop away some of the background from the right side of the photo. So I'll click on the crop tool, and when I do that, a crop appears on your image, which you can adjust to how you want it. I'll start by clicking inside the crop box and then dragging the box up and to the left, and you can see it kind of snaps to the edge of the photo when you get near the edge. So then I'll release the mouse button. Notice that there are 8 tiny squares around the crop box, 1 on each side and 1 in each corner. These are called adjustment handles, and you can use them to resize the crop box. I'm going to start by clicking and dragging the bottom handle all the way down until it snaps to the bottom of my photo. Right there. Next I'll click and drag on the right handle, and I'll bring it over to about where I want to include the photo. So you can see this gray area is what's going to be cropped off of my photo. Once you're happy with how the crop looks, you can click the green check mark to accept the change. Step 2 says, use one of the selection tools to choose the primary subject of your photo. And it gives you 2 different selection tools to choose from, the auto selection tool and the quick selection tool. When I was testing this process before recording the video, I found that the quick selection tool worked best, and I'm going to choose that by clicking on it. I want to select just the guy and not the background behind him. So I'll move my cursor over to my image. I'll put it on his face so you can see it better on his forehead. I can make it larger by pressing the right bracket key on my keyboard. Every time I press it, it gets a little bit bigger. I'll make it about that big. Just so you know, if you need to make it smaller, you can press the left bracket key. But I'm going to make it about that big. And now I'm just going to go near the edge of his hat at the top there where it kind of meets the background and see if I can get a selection out of that. Well, you can see, hopefully you can see in the video that the selection included the background, this area in the upper left, which I do not want. You could, at this point, press the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC. When I do that, you see that the plus sign in the middle of my cursor changes to a minus sign, meaning that you can subtract from your selection. So I'll get near the edge of his hat again and see if I can take that background out of the selection. That did a pretty good job. So now I'll release the Option or Alt key again and the plus sign appears. So I'll continue selecting my subject. And again, over on the right side now it's snapped and included the whole background. So I'll hold down the Option or Alt key and see if I can get rid of that background from the selection. And let's see, I'm going to make my cursor a little smaller by pressing the left bracket key. I want to take away a little more over here, and now I want to add this part back in. So it's really, with this tool, it's kind of a lot of back and forth between adding and subtracting to your selection until you get just what you want. Now I'm noticing that I can't actually see the marching ants on the top or bottom of my image. So I'm going to make it a little smaller by pressing the Command minus sign, or it would be the Control minus sign on the PC. Okay, now I can see it better. So the selection actually looks pretty good, except for the areas right at the bottom of where his hat meets his shoulder on both sides. And it would probably actually work okay with this technique to leave that, but just so you can kind of see how to use the quick selection tool a little better, I'm going to zoom in on that area. And I'm going to make my cursor smaller again, so I can get in that little area. And I want to subtract this out, so I'm going to hold the Option or Alt key, get the minus sign, and then I'll just kind of go in here. And I'm going to add back a little more over here. Now I'm going to press my space bar so I can move over to the other side and do the same thing. I want to subtract this area, so I'll hold the Option or Alt and go in there, and then I'll try to add a little of his hat back in there. And now I'll press Command or Control minus sign to zoom back out, and that looks like a pretty good selection. Let's continue on by going to step 3, which says choose a photo to superimpose on your primary subject. Then there's a button that says import a photo. So if you want to superimpose a photo that is stored on your computer, you would press that button and then you can navigate to the photo that you want. Or you can choose one of the 3 options that are provided. I'm going to choose the center photo, which is labeled city. You just click on it to choose it, and then you see it superimposed over your open photo. Below the 3 thumbnails is an intensity slider. If you click and drag the slider to the left, it fades back the superimposed image. When you click on the slider, a number appears above it. The numbers go from 1 all the way on the left up to 100 on the right, which is full intensity. So I'm going to bring this one down to about 80. Now let's go to step 4. Step 4 says use the Move tool to position the superimposed photo. Right below that is a button that allows you to make the Move tool active. Let's click on it. Now we can put the cursor over the image and see that it's changed to the Move tool icon. If you click and drag with the Move tool, it moves the superimposed image around. Elements tries to size the superimposed photo to the original photo. So if you move the photo, there's a good chance that you'll see the edge of the superimposed image. You can see it at the top of by his hat right now. And if I move it over to the left, you can see it over on the right side. So there's really not a lot of adjusting you can do at this point by moving it around. However, you can move it, and then you get these adjustment handles on the bounding box, which you can click and drag to resize the superimposed image. So I can make it larger, and now I have a little more play with how I adjust it. Once you get your image positioned the way you want, just click the green check mark to accept it. The next and final step of this technique is step 5, and it says choose an effect to finish your double exposure. Let's click on the effects button. And I'll move that up a little bit so we can see it, because when we click on the effects button, we see 9 thumbnails appear. Each thumbnail shows a representation of the effect. The effects all apply some sort of color gradient over your image. The thumbnail at the top left lets you go back to no effect if you try some but decide that you like your image better without the effect. If I chose this first effect here and I decided I didn't like it, I can click this no effect button or thumbnail and it'll go back to my original. I'm going to choose this effect at the bottom center, so I'll click on that. And this also has an intensity slider like we saw with our earlier step. You can bring that down a little bit if you want. I think I'll just leave it at 100. And now we've completed all of the steps. At the bottom of the window we have 2 options. There's a next button and a cancel button. They've been there as options from the beginning of the double exposure guided edit technique that we've gone through. The cancel button will take you out of the double exposure window and undo any of the steps that you applied to your photo. So let's click the next button and see what happens. The steps are replaced with a different panel with some options now that you applied the technique. You can do a save or save as. You can continue editing your image within quick mode or expert mode. And you can share it on your Facebook, Flickr, or Twitter account if you have one and you want to share it on there. But if all you wanted to do is apply the double exposure effect, you would probably just save it as a JPEG file at this point. Actually, I want to quickly show you another way you can use the double exposure technique. So I'm going to go up to the edit menu and choose revert. And that'll bring us back to the original state of our photo. To reset everything, I need to go back to expert mode, so I'll click on that and then back into guided. And I'll click on the double exposure thumbnail again to get our 5 steps. Basically, I just want to show you that step 2, where you select your subject, is optional, and you might like the effect better without it. I'm going to run through the steps real quick just to get to the final result. I'm going to skip the first 2 steps and go right to step 3, where I'll choose the city image again. And that gets superimposed on my photo, and then I'll lower the intensity to about 80 like we did before. This is where you can see how different the effect is compared to the first time when we used step 2 to select our image. Instead of the superimposed photo being confined to a selected area, it goes over our entire photo. And in this example, I actually like it better. And I'll just finish it off by applying that same effect that we did last time. So that wraps up this tutorial on how to use the double exposure guided edit technique that was added to Photoshop Elements 2018. Until next time, this is Rick from EssentialPhotoshopElements.com saying take care.